could stay on stage for our panel. Let's bring out our moderator now, a woman whose entire job is thinking deep thoughts about the Internet of Things. Join us in welcoming Maria Urban of Piabo. Welcome. The stage is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for joining our discussion on the IoT and the next 50 years. I'm Maria Urban from Piabo, a Berlin-based PR agency focused on the digital economy in Europe. I'm very happy to speak today with some of the IoT experts in Germany about this topic. So please let me introduce you to our panelists. Joseph already introduced himself. A few words from me as well. So Joseph founded his first company at the age of 16. That's really impressive. And what I found out about Relia, that you claim that you make IoT as easy and as fun as chocolate. So I'm happy that you are here today. Thank you. So next, I welcome from Microsoft Alexander Britz, Head of IoT at Microsoft Germany. Please give a warm applause. Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Alexander is responsible for the digital business transformation and Internet of Things at Microsoft. Before he was in charge of government-related business and also dealing with IT and healthcare sector. Welcome. As a third panelist, we have Dr. Markos Home from IBM Watson, Internet of Things Center of Excellence. Hi, welcome. So Markos is the architect of a lot of IoT solutions across various industries in Germany and worldwide. This is very interesting, so I'm happy you are here today. And last but not least, we have Frederik Brandner, CEO of Magazzino. Hi. Hi. Magazzino develops and constructs intelligent robots, especially for the logistics and warehouses. And you too founded your first company at the age of 16. You have something in common. And Frederik is also among the innovators under 35. That's impressive. So please let us take our seats. Yeah.
So, soll ich dann? Sorry.
It's okay. So I will take my seat here. Okay. So the purpose of this session is that we can get an overview of the topic of IoT and the impact it has on business, of course, on politics and society, as well as probably on our personal lives. And of course, we prepared some questions, but I would like to encourage you as the audience to ask your question yourself. So please don't hesitate if you have a question, just to raise your hand, and someone with a microphone will hurry to you so that you can ask your question. So please don't hesitate, you are invited. So for the beginning, because the field of IoT is rather new, please just in 2 sentences describe very shortly what are you doing.
Should I start? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I just used more than 2 sentences. So no, I mean, at the end of the day, what we do is we enable new business outcomes for our customers using technology.
Great, in 1 sentence.
So I build solutions for different industries for our customers that solve real-world problems, business to business usually, using IoT technology to combine with other technologies. And I counter what you said. I think IoT is way older than just recent things. Mm-hmm. It's just we called it differently, and it was leading up to what we have now and sum up under the term of Internet of Things.
So to try to keep it short, and that's always a challenge, we are helping our customers, our partners, on their way of the digital transformation. IoT is a part of it, actually. It's a start most of the time, but it's by no means the whole thing. So trying to help them on their way, on their path, which is a fairly long path, that's basically what we're doing.
If you have a robot running in a real world, doing real tasks, you need a brain for that robot. So we developed that brain. And the first use case for us is robots in logistic areas. So if you order your online shoes, at the moment there's still humans walking around picking those shoes. And at some online retailers now, those shoes are, for example, picked with robots. So we're doing very similar jobs, what humans are doing at the moment, based on robots which can explore the world, have knowledge about the environment, about the objects, about the tasks, and about their own behavior.
So, Markos, you said the concept of IoT is much older, but I think we probably agree that it picks up speed. What do you think are the main drivers for this development?
So yes, it picks up speed. It's an exponential growth, and huge enablers are the cloud technologies we have today, the connectivity that we have, and also things that are going to be very important in the future is the ability to deal with really big data. It is a tremendous amount of data that we are generating today. I think right now we're talking about 30 billion devices connected. For the next couple of years, I think 2020, the prognosis is about 30 billion devices, and the prognoses are being increased every year. And there's a tremendous amount of data being generated and not used today, not used to create business value, and not used to improve our lives. And at the same time, there's a huge risk because it's a lot of data about us, about the consumers, a lot of data about the businesses out there. And so we need to create value from it and we need to secure it. Enablers are also the security available to us today, which very often we're not using yet.
Alexander, you are head of IoT. You started this position 1 year ago. What did you observe in this year? If you look back, if you give a quick recap on this year as head of IoT at Microsoft.
There's so many things that have changed, to be honest. The first thing that has changed is my definition of IoT. Because it started as a fairly technical definition, to be honest, and I fully agree. IoT nowadays is certainly driven by cloud technologies, by our possibilities and opportunities now to make sense out of tons of data. However, if you really look into it, as I said before, IoT is a start and technology is a start. When you really look at IoT nowadays, it is actually a business revolution that we're talking about, and it's fueled by technology. It is not about technology as such. And that is one thing that certainly has changed in sort of my approach to the whole thing. The second thing, and I guess that's true for the entire industry, is the speed of development is just amazing. I mean, I guess we all had a bit of a question mark and a chuckle when we read the title of IoT in the next 50 years. We're happy when we look about a year ahead. 2 years is almost impossible. 50 years, we have no clue. Therefore, the speed that we have, you really have to look at the whole topic like every 3 months, and probably you will have to redefine what you're doing.
So, Frederick, I think you just agreed that we can't look ahead that far, but in terms of robotics, where do we stand and what are the next steps in your specific field?
Well, I think the big misunderstanding is that when people think of robotics, that they think of as normal 60-degree of freedom arm, a Q-car arm, which you see in all the modern production plants. Those robots are already there and they do a good job, but they're very deterministic, meaning that they do the same welding spot over and over at the same point, and they've been doing that for the last 20 years. What's coming in now and what's the big change, in my opinion, and what we call advanced robotics, are robots which can look into the world, so they have a lot of sensors, a lot of computer vision, they can identify the world, they can identify the objects, and then they can decide at runtime what to do. So they can move around, pick a different object, and that is the big change. So it's not the robotic arm which was doing the same job for 20 years, but it's that a robot is coming into areas which were usually run by humans and take over jobs which were done by humans. But to be honest, the robots are still at the very beginning. So robots are still quite dumb to some extent, and there's some areas, for example, in warehouses where it's feasible and where it makes sense from a business point of view, but the danger that robots will take over all those complex tasks of humans will still take a while.
So if we look into the use cases, as you said, with robotics we are at the beginning, but Relier is IoT platform provider. I heard of probably, for example, Deutsche Bahn, who you are working with. Could you give a case, the coolest case of the last year or the last 2 years of a project where you helped a company use the IoT?
Yeah, the coolest is pretty tough because all of our customers are extremely cool. But I think what's most exciting to me, and that's also has something to do with the acceleration, is that, for all the right reasons that you just mentioned, the other thing that's driving customers is competitive pressure. And because you have to be honest, in the industrial world, if good enough is good enough, nobody will move. Right? But now you have competitive pressure and people need to move, and that's why you see that acceleration. So, and it's both a threat and an opportunity, specifically in Europe. If you look at the impact that industrial manufacturing has to the GDP, then you very quickly realize that this is something that we have to do. And these are the projects that I find most exciting, the projects that are changing the dynamics of a company, when an entire company is changing business models away from CAPEX to OPEX and using technology to advance that journey, and then really changing go-to-market. Sometimes they're people, and it's really killing from the inside, if you will. Something that Amazon does really well on the e-commerce side. It's now something that we see starting in the industrial world as well. And I would say that's the coolest thing for me, when you have 100, 150-year-old companies changing their entire go-to-market and their entire, their entire DNA, if you will. So that's what I would consider the coolest, and not the project, when you have station clocks and you control them, like the Deutsche Bahn project as an example. That's also very, very important, but it's not as impactful as changing the entire, company from the inside out.
Markos, can you think of a project of IBM Watson IoT platform, like in contrast, just to illustrate, I think, the more abstract image that the public sometimes has regarding IBM Watson?
Okay, so with IBM Watson, what we enable is that we bring cognitive computing capabilities to all of that data from the Internet of Things. One of the big, what is the status quo today is that we have prescriptive analytics. We know, we are looking ahead in time, but we know what could potentially happen. This is what we tell our computers, we give it rules. What is new is that we let the computers learn on their own and be able, we believe this is the only way how we can manage all of the data that will be available in the future and make use of that data, to let the computers learn and help us. So support the humans, not replace them. The same is with the robots. I don't think we will ever replace, but we can help humans, and we can help them in different ways. So one area where I think it is a very nice area is enabling people to live longer at home. Elderly people might need assistance sometimes, but also through collaboration with insurances, we can help them in a smart home or a smart enabled home to live longer but still have access to help when they need it. So a nurse can monitor them. And things like privacy play, of course, a huge role when you have electronics, computer IoT monitor or watch over you in your home. You want to make sure that this data never gets into the wrong hands. So I think this is, detecting anomalies there, detecting, for example, simple things like, oh, this person hasn't left the room or hasn't left the house in 2 days, the refrigerator door wasn't open. This is what I mean with prescriptive. This is what we can do today. But then calculating how somebody recovers from an illness by seeing how often they move and putting all of the information together, I think this is really helping people's lives and making a difference. And this is one example. And we have similar examples in industry, but they're not as as close to us consumers as health is.
So regarding all the technology level, we have here now Joseph from Relier, Microsoft, IBM, and Magazzino. So this is a question for you, Alexander. How in terms of technology development, and because of in IoT and in technology in general, everything is moving so fast, does Microsoft has to move as fast as a startup or its startup speed? Is this a topic inside Microsoft right now?
To be honest, I don't necessarily like the distinction between like the big companies and the small companies. I think we should rather think of the agile companies and the more static companies. We should think of the fast-moving companies and the not so fast-moving, of the ones that are really open to innovation and the ones that are maybe not as open. And there are folks that are small and they're not as quick and more static, and there's larger organizations that move actually pretty fast. And yes, fair enough, when you get 100,000 people, you might need for a couple of things a bit longer than when you have 10 employees. But at the end of the day, in the technology sector we're all in, speed is certainly the one thing that makes a difference. And therefore, this is just no choice of saying, okay, are we as quick as, and that is basically for all our organizations, to be honest. We cannot say, hey, we need a little bit more time because we're bigger. That's just not happening. Speed and the next big thing is certainly something that is important. And our CEO said something which I think is really very true in our sector, that our industry doesn't respect tradition. It only respects innovation. And this is pretty much hitting it. And that, therefore, speed needs to be there. It's a prerequisite, nothing else.
So, Frederick, from your perspective, you build up or you develop those robots from set up from ground, so from zero. How far, or do you have any corporations, let me still say with corporates, what is your experience from the startup point of view? Let me still make this kind of separation, just to let you give your perspective.
Well, we started from scratch, that's true. And what we do is so complex, you can't do that in a small team. So we had to get bigger pretty fast because you have to do navigation, localization, you have to do the whole higher level control, you have to interfaces, and we are doing the hardware design as well as electronics design, and of course software, as we're a software company, the biggest part is software. We got a corporate investor very early, so Siemens has invested into us, and I think that helped a lot. I do think there are differences, but I do agree with the notion that it's about the speed and how agile a company can be. And at the end of the day, it's always the same discussion between startups and corporates and how they can interact. I do believe that business is a people's business, and it doesn't matter whether you work with a startup or with big corporate. If you find people on the other side you like and both want the deal, it's going to happen. They can help you, and if you find people, it can be a large corporate or can be a small company. It's about the people you meet.
Joseph, do you consider Relier still a startup?
We are 3 years old, so I would say yes. But now we're getting to 200 people. We're in a new fundraising exercise now, scaling the company to Asia. Next plan is getting closer to the 500, and that's what our customers actually want us to do, because it's what we're doing is we're not creating gadgets. They're using us as a platform to enable their next generation of business, if you will. So you got to be a serious business partner, right? So we're really trying to grow up, and you see this in all the different phases of the organization, because we have to grow with the growth that we are experiencing in the company, right? So seniority is a big topic for us. I agree on the discussion around speed, but on the other side, I also think that if you're a standalone company that's exclusively focused on IoT, then this gives you slightly more freedom, because we're domain expert in what we're doing, while other companies have IoT as another silo, right? And there's dependencies internally. There might be pull through, which is helpful. But for us, we're domain expert. So I would say a grown-up startup, right? Still young, trying to keep that aggressiveness, trying to be agile, growing very fast, but now becoming also more senior as a company, so that we clearly understand, respect the responsibility we have as these companies use our technology for the next generation of their business.
I see. So, Markos, we have here around of us a lot of startups and new ideas, new technologies around artificial intelligence, sensor technology, and so on. Are you looking for certain ideas, certain technologies? So probably a startup or founder in the audience or around hears this. Probably we can make an introduction afterwards. So what is your interest?
What is my interest? We like to help partners, and startups can become partners by providing the pieces that are a lot of work, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of connectivity with the right customers, in terms of integration. As Alexander said earlier, it's about a digital transformation of a company. It's not about IoT alone. This is one part. It's a technology that enables something, that enables our customers to be a disruptor and not being the one who is disrupted, about making new use cases. Or, for example, working with a white goods manufacturer. Traditionally, they're selling these white goods through big chains, and they never have contact with their end customer until something breaks. And then this end customer calls in and has a complaint, has a warranty issue. It's a bad thing to start a connection with, to start a first discussion. This is where we can help. This is where we can change the whole way such a white goods manufacturer works. And working with partners, we work with a lot of partners. As IBM, for example, does not do sensors. We don't do sensors, we don't do gateways. We have samples, of course, but we have a big partner network. And this is, I've talked to a number of startups here today. This is where startups can leverage the infrastructure, can leverage the worldwide availability, can leverage the cloud here and our experience and work with us. We have a big center in Munich, our IoT center in Munich, a huge investment from IBM, and this is where we bring our technologies to the cloud, microservices, cognitive technologies, and they can combine with the new sensor technologies, device technologies, or the like from startups here, or just new business ideas, right? Have a problem, need a partner to actually get it going, and have the connectivity into insurances, into big manufacturing plants, and the like.
Understood. So we spoke about, and you all agreed that it's not about the kind of the age of a company, but how agile and how innovative it is. However, I can imagine that, for instance, for you, Alexander, for Microsoft, you bring new technology to the German Mittelstand. And I would be interested in the obstacles you see, or the challenges that, let's say, traditional companies that probably don't move that fast face.
Well, number one, I mean, there is a good number of companies in what we call Mittelstand, so the mid-sized companies, which is actually the heart of the German industry, of the German economic base, that is actually fairly advanced and moving rather quickly. So that's by no means, we shouldn't always say they're not quick enough and all that. There is a good number that is hesitant at this moment in time. And I guess one of the things that we as technology companies certainly have to do is to see that we educate them more and more and say, okay, we bring down the perceived hurdles, the perceived obstacles. And yes, most of that is actually information. And you can't blame them because, again, we are moving so fast nowadays with technology that something that was true 2 years ago is by now completely outdated. And this is our world, and we live with that kind of pace. but you can't expect someone who is maybe not in that kind of industry, but very good in her own industry, necessarily is always an expert. So I think it is about us as technology companies, not only Microsoft but also others, to really educate folks. That is one. But education as such is a topic. I mean, it's one thing to educate the industry, but it's also to make sure that we have the education in schools. Because at the end of the day, what we're going to face is an interesting challenge, because we need people, young people, to come up to be computer scientists, to be software engineers and all that. And as a society, to be honest, we're not doing a very good job right now, certainly not in Germany. You can bring up lots of topics in terms of how many girls are actually in these technology fields, studying technology, software engineering, all that. And therefore, I think this is less a topic that we should only address as a company to our customers, but we should rather address as an industry to the society.
I would love to add something to this. Some of you might know, some of you might not. I'd like to make a little advertisement for the World Robot Olympiad. It's a Lego Mindstorms competition taking part worldwide for kids, starting at the age of 8. So it works. I've done that with my own kids, like for the third time, one with each one in the elementary group. So from 8 to 12, and then it gets more and more advanced. But they're solving a problem, and you teach them how to program a robot, how to build a robot to start, how to teach them, and then during the competition they have to do that themselves. And so just now, this time, actually in the southern part of Baden-Württemberg, we'll have the competition starting this Saturday, and it's Germany-wide, and there will be then the local finals and so forth. So if you have your children and you want to get them interested in this topic, I think this is a great idea. I love it every time I do it, and you see how, like my daughter just learned it now. So I have 2 boys and a daughter, and the youngest is a daughter, and she's just, how she learns to program and how they start to at least understand the flows and sequences of programs, and then how to understand how to do a loop and all of these things. It's amazing. And we need it. We need these people.
So education, I think, is a very, very important topic in all this field because of the change and the shift in the working life. So I would like to grab up this point again. So what would you recommend your kids to study right now? So if we face more robots in the working life, if we face more artificial intelligence programs taking over our tasks that we do, what would you recommend your kids? Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend anything, but I want to give them an idea of what it is about so they can make an informed decision. It's at the end, you need to do what your heart is in. You need to love your job, otherwise you're spending the majority of your time doing something that you don't love just for the money. And that's not going to get you anywhere. That's never going to be successful. But I want the kids to know what it's really like. Like my oldest, we just had a talk at school, and he said something like, I want to have an easy job. Like my dad, I want to be at home during the daytimes and stuff. Like, he's no clue what I'm doing. I don't think my job is that easy, but it has some amenities, right? I can do home office and stuff like that, and I can be on stage like here. So, but I don't think he has a full picture. So this is giving them the information and giving them the ability to learn through internships, to doing a Boys Week, Girls Day, things like that, and getting in touch with the technology, and also making them aware. There's a discussion I just had yesterday, I think, making them aware of the risks of some of the technologies. Like we talked about the use of WhatsApp and what they all send over WhatsApp, and not being aware of where the information goes and how much information profiled and the like. So making them more aware of technology and giving them the ability to decide.
Alexander, you wanted to add something.
Can only agree. I mean, there is no point in saying, listen, from now onwards, 50% of all girls have to be software engineers. That's not the point. I mean, we have to give them the opportunity. Yes, we have to give them the possibility to do an informed choice. And we need to start very early. And I think that is the important part. We have a fairly traditional approach to education in that sense still. And that's probably something that we need to think about. And if we do that right, I think, and we bring down the obstacles, the hurdles, the perceptions and all that, I think we'll have a larger percentage of young people actually going for these jobs. But still, I can't agree more, they need to do what they like. I mean, there is no point in trying to determine this is what you're going to like, period.
The discussion always arises when there's a discussion about the future of work. And then people always think, okay, the people who will work in warehouses now will be losing their job at first. But my brother is a radiologist, and I think he's going to be taken over by Watson earlier than a lot of people in the warehouse. And even a lot of our computer scientists, and we've got about 30 people only doing programming and robotics in that sense, they sometimes say that soon robots will program robots or computer will program computers. So you're not even sure if that's safe. So at the end of the day, I do agree with what you said, and I would maybe add that I think critical thinking, giving the possibility and ability to really think of what's happening and we think what is good and have ethics behind there to some extent is important. And of course, creativity will not be taken over for a while. So even if somebody wants to become an artist because he wants to, I think he's got good chances because maybe the robots will be built by robots and then the artists are back on track.
I think everything has been said. I would just add entrepreneurship to it, right? I mean, just doing something is important, and encouraging people to actually go into entrepreneurship is something that I think is not being taught in school. And then the other thing is just speed up the content, whatever the content is, be programming, creativity. So you cannot use 20-year-old collaterals to teach kids, right? In the pace that we're seeing, I think that's just fundamentally flawed.
The other thing that tie into a talk this morning from our colleagues from Volkswagen, there was about was design thinking and then human thinking. I think the methodology, and one of the points I remember is it the right thing to do? So enabling our kids to in the future also make that decision. Is it the right thing to do? In IoT, we have tons of ideas and gadgets, but a lot of them are, well, I'm not even sure they are helpful. They're just ideas and they're maybe cool and they're gadgets, but they may not be the right thing to do. So trying to put things into perspective and not just think about what can I do with the technology.
Very good. Yeah, very interesting points, even that robots might program robots. So, of course, 50% software developers, maybe. So we don't know how the world will develop. But let's come back to the now. Alexander, I would be interested in whether or which smart objects or variables you use personally.
Not that many, to be honest. And I still think, we have to come to the point where we do a better job in terms of meeting customers' needs, because we have so far, we have devices for the folks that are doing lots of sports, and we have a couple of devices for people that are chronically ill, and we have this. But we have, if you want too many different approaches, and we don't yet have, at least not for my personal use, to be honest, anything that I would say, that helps me every single day the way I need it. So, and that is a personal choice, and no question. Other folks are happy with whatever they have. I personally haven't found that yet for me myself, to be honest.
Josef, did you found a gadget that you use and that fulfills all your needs, or probably some gadgets that accompany you every day?
Well, I'm actually pretty anti-tech, I have to say, right? I'm very, I use my phone to actually do phone calls, and use my car to drive. So I think I'm like you, right? I don't need gadgets. I actually think it's a distraction, and I think that with all the gadgets, you waste a lot of time, and a lot of the gadgets are just there for the sake of having a gadget. So actually, I'm a big fan of, less is more, and we also see this in the company. The more gadgets there are, the more people spend time with these gadgets, and I think the less efficient they are. So I think overall there's a lot of distraction. I mean, it's a very general statement, but I think that's how we see it. So and I'm pretty old school, if you will. Yeah.
That's very interesting because you are helping making products smart, but in the field or in the personal field on the B2C field, you yourself haven't found a very helpful gadget yet. That's interesting. Markos, as we already had a little chat before this panel, we talked about that you made your home smart. So you are working on your an own smart home at home. So how does this look like?
Well, yeah, that's right. So I'm an engineer by trade. I grew up, my dad's an electrician, has a company there, so electricity and electronics, and I could have just ended up as an electrician as well, probably. But sometime I started programming computers, and so that's how it went. So when I built my new home, I tried to, as a German engineer, I tried to consider all opportunity, all possibilities, and I never want to have a cable that needs to run from one wall to the other and things like this. I probably overdid it there, and in the web you find a term called the WAF, the Woman Acceptance Factor, and for some of those innovations in my home, that factor is probably pretty low. So I'm not quite, I'm a little geekier. I like having gadgets. Unfortunately today I find I don't have time for lots of them, and through my job I have access to a lot of things that are just sitting around. You know, companies having trial products and the like, and I couldn't use them all. But the smart home, I try to focus on things that make the life easier. And some things, for example, in our old house, we never opened or closed the blinds, or Rollladen in Deutschland, that we have there. At least only some of them, and so. And if you want to do them electrically, you have to have a lot of switches traditionally. So this is one thing that can really be done automatically, and and having that being done by the time the sun rises and sunsets, this is just a simple thing. Or a couple of other things are around the energy use in the home, and of course I have a photovoltaic system, and of course I want to run my dryer and washer if I'm using the dryer at all, but I want to run them when energy is available and the like. But this is not critical, and also the amount of energy that you're saving there is not tremendous. However, where you can make a huge difference is on the heating of the homes. So my house today is solar heated, primarily solar heated, and that's a whole concept that I build around. Commercially, or for the better of humankind, I think that this living at home, elderly care scenario is one where it really makes sense. Maybe also sometime in security and around amenities. As our home appliances get more complex, as our ovens get more complex, if you have a steam oven, you know, programming such a steam oven to have the right temperature for what you're cooking right now is a non-trivial task, and either you're using a recipe that is preset, but if you have your own and the like, interacting with those appliances, for example, through voice control in the future, getting suggestions, these are amenities, and they will enable it that people who are not tech savvy can use this, can make use of it. A good example is grandmother's remote control. So if a couple of years back, we probably all had multiple remote controls in the living room for all of the stuff that we had there. And if somebody came to visit and wanted to operate the entertainment system, you would have to teach him for 15, 20 minutes on how to do it. So with technology, you can say, okay, this is the one button you press, and it will be all on, and this is the volume, and this is the channel you switch, or something like this, right? Or through voice control.
Thank you. So for those insights, I'm looking at the time, and the time is running, but I would like to give the audience still a chance to ask a question. So do we have a question in the audience? No, I don't see. We have one. So the mic is coming.
Hi. First of all, thank you all for the comments. My question is maybe a little more philosophical, but still, How do you see the role of a human in this world that's becoming more and more connected? We are seeing smart, intelligent algorithms, all this data. Do you think that, and we are seeing, of course, Watson and other supercomputers that are, and we are delegating more and more decisions to those supercomputers. Do you think that humans will become obsolete in 20, 30 years?
Well, let me start. And of course, that's now a topic that we can spend a couple of hours on. Certainly not obsolete, no. Is our way to interact with computers and machines going to change? Yes. But this has been happening over the last years, and the way people have interacted with technology has always changed over, since technology was introduced. So and there's always been people afraid of, what's happening, what does that mean for me? And I think one of our tasks, again, as a company, as an industry, as a society, is to address that and make sure that we have not only rules and a certain understanding of what we want to do, but we have also a common consensus in the society. Because at the end of the day, we see people that are afraid and saying, okay, what does that mean? And so we need to inform them, and we need to make sure they really understand what it means for them. And yes, there will be changes also in the work life, and we certainly need to address that. So I think there's no point in saying don't worry, it's all going to be good, and then people are going to be surprised, sometimes negatively surprised, and we all have an issue in the society we live in. So what will be the future? Of course, certain tasks will be taken over by systems, robots, computers, software, whatever. But again, that's not necessarily new. What we have to do, we have to address rules, we have to address borders where we say, till that point, yes, but then there is a limit. And we certainly need to address and discuss the ethics of use of technology. And that's certainly the things I think that we need to be fairly busy with in the next couple of years.
Interesting is that it's the same question on every single panel. It's always the future of work and the difference. What I see is on the one side, companies tend to say that the human still will play a major role, and somehow every company says that, especially in the warehousing, just because they're maybe too afraid to say that maybe one day it's not going to be, so they don't want to be the one in public saying that. So it shifts somehow the discussion. On the other side, of course, you can bring all those examples that in the past technology always evolved us, and you can say the washing machine, for example. Nobody's complaining about a washing machine. Everybody is happy about it, and it freed us from washing, and we could take care of our kids, etc. I think there's two major questions. The one is, how is your view on technology? Do you think that it's going to bring us better or not? I personally believe that in the past it brought us forward. It helped us. The people are living a better life today than they lived in the past because of technology. So that's one question you have to ask yourself. And the second question is, besides maybe regulation, is how fast is it going to happen? Is it this time maybe happening too fast that the society can't cope, that we can't adapt that fast? And I'm not sure yet, right? That is not decided. It seems like pace is increasing. It seems like AI is going to have a huge impact on robotics and will really change that within the next years. But nobody knows yet whether it's only another AI winter or a lot of other prediction which failed in the past, and we will cope pretty well again and life continues.
Thank you very much. So we ran out of time. I just would like to do a quick wrap up. So what we heard is actually for this panel that is called IoT in the next 50 years, we agreed that we can't look so far ahead, but we agreed upon that it's so important that companies stay agile or develop an agile working style, We heard that we don't have a really smart object for the private life yet that covers at least the functions that Alexander and Joseph would need. So there's much space for startups left to develop something. I would like to say thank you, thank you to the audience, and I will please enjoy the cube. Thank you.
Okay, big round of applause for our panel. Thank you very much for bringing us a closer look at the Internet of Things.